Hello, everyone. My name is Yasser Qureshi. I am a Senior Migration Specialist SA in the Worldwide Public Sector Organization at AWS. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mohammed Sharaf, who is also a Migration Specialist SA, as well as a very special guest here today from Fannie Mae, and her name is Bindu Kaul, who is the Senior Director of Cloud and Data Technology. Today, we are going to be discussing how to migrate to AWS while ensuring security and compliance. Towards the middle of the presentation, we will hear Fannie Mae's story about how they migrated. And towards the end, Mohammed will give us a summary of some of the tools that you can use to accelerate your migration. So we hear from enterprise customers daily that they want to quickly transform their business. And the reason for undergoing this transformation are focused around some of these efforts over here, some of these benefits, which are reducing cost, gaining agility, driving innovation, and becoming more resilient, as well as enhancing security. To attain these goals, typically customers first consider moving their existing workloads over into AWS. Then once they are in the cloud, they then begin to modernize them to take advantage of cloud-native capabilities such as scale, resiliency, and security. Today, cloud is the new normal. According to a Flexera 2021 State of the Cloud report, over 50% of enterprise workloads and data are expected to be in a public cloud within the next 12 months. I can tell you that from personal conversations and personal experience, even just a couple of years ago, many of the customers I was talking to were still in the process of contemplating if the cloud or moving to the cloud was even the right fit for them and if it was feasible. But today, migrating to the cloud is no longer an option. And instead, the focus of our discussion has turned to what is the fastest way to migrate. At AWS, we have over 10 years of experience helping migrate thousands of customers and their workloads over to the cloud. Many of the reasons why customers migrate to AWS are listed over here. And in this presentation, we will look at some of the migration best practices to drive this discussion. Speaking about best practices, here are some key things to consider. Number one, use a security-first approach. Security is of the highest priority here at AWS, and it's also why we consider it to be a top priority for migrations. Number two, a proven migration methodology provides a formula for success. At AWS, over the years, we have developed a formula for this success based on thousands of customers and their migrations and their application workload migrations. Number three, well-architected design principles are fundamental to your success when you're operating in the cloud. Next, my colleague Bindu will share Fannie Mae's story on how they are going about this cloud migration journey, and she will share her perspectives on establishing a cloud center of excellence, as well as building out the right skill sets to migrate to the cloud. And then finally, Mohammed will provide some insights on the tools to make this journey easier. So let's start with security and compliance. At AWS, security is job zero, which means that it's more important than any number one priority. Our customers regularly tell us that they are more secure in the cloud than in their own data centers. And here are 4 ways that I'd like to share with you that show you how we protect our customers' data. The first one here is when you migrate your workloads over to AWS, you choose which region to put your applications and your data in. And your data stays within that region unless you choose to move it. Number 2 is encryption. We will provide you the tools that allow you to easily encrypt your data in transit and at rest to help ensure that only authorized users can access that data, using keys managed by our AWS Key Management Service, or managing your own encryption keys with Cloud HSM. To comply with data privacy laws, AWS offers identity and access management, through which our customers define who has access to which resources. We use the principle of least privilege, which means by default there is no access to anything. And customers then have to specify who they want to give access to and to which resources within their accounts. Our customers inherit the latest security controls operated by AWS, which strengthens their own compliance and certification programs. AWS supports more security standards and compliance certifications than any other cloud provider. We have a large number of security tools and services that allow our customers to stay secure in the cloud and to constantly monitor their security posture. At AWS, we operate with a shared responsibility model in which AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, and our customers are responsible for security in the cloud. AWS is responsible for protecting the infrastructure that runs all of the services offered in the AWS cloud. This infrastructure is composed of the hardware, the software, the networking, and the facilities that run AWS cloud services. The customer responsibility is determined by the AWS cloud services that they use. And this determines the amount of configuration work that the customer must perform as part of their security responsibilities. For example, if a customer deploys an Amazon EC2 instance, they are responsible for management of the guest operating system, which includes any updates and security patches, as well as the application software or utilities that are installed, and the configuration of the AWS-provided firewall, which is called security groups, on each instance. This shared responsibility changes depending on which service you use. For some of our managed services, AWS will take on more of this responsibility, such as in the case of Amazon RDS, which is our relational database service, which is a fully managed database service that we offer. So it's important to understand this distinction in shared responsibility. If you're interested in security, here are some of the many security-focused topics that are going to be presented at the summit. I would encourage you to check out some of these. Feel free to take a picture of the screen. And you can actually look these up using the session catalog by just typing in security, and you're going to see a long list of all the security-focused topics. And each of these sessions dives much deeper into security topics and will give you a solid foundation on cloud security. Another best practice for migration is to choose a proven migration methodology. So why is it important to have a proven migration methodology? Well, migrations are extremely challenging and complex. It's a bit like building a ship. Often the first question is, where do I start? What do I need to migrate? What are the tools that I need in order to migrate my workloads, and how quickly can I do that? Customers tell us about several issues with their cloud migrations, and some of the reasons are listed over here. The biggest risk to a cloud migration is often in a stalled project, or with false starts, which can often set a cloud program back by several months or even years, and not to mention the changing personnel that occur within an organization. So is there a way to minimize these issues or to identify them early on so that we can do something about it? This is why we need a proven mechanism that has been used by customers in the past to provide a formula for success. At AWS, we developed the Cloud Adoption Framework back in 2014, also known as a CAF. The CAF leverages AWS experience and best practices to help you digitally transform and accelerate your business outcomes through innovative use of AWS. This framework looks at your business outcomes and works backwards from those, such as reduce risk, improve environmental, social, and governance propositions, growing revenue, and increasing operational efficiency. It then looks across the transformation domains, such as technology, process, organization, and product. And at its core, the CAF is centered around 6 foundational capabilities, which include business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. My colleague from Fannie Mae will discuss how they leverage the CAF in guiding their migration. And all of these capabilities are captured by a cloud readiness assessment. So how do we put this Cloud Adoption Framework into action? The answer is through the Migration Acceleration Program, which is a three-phase approach to migrating workloads in the cloud. These three phases are assess, mobilize, and migrate. The assess phase is focused around discovering what workloads you currently have running in your environment. We use tools such as AWS Migration Evaluator to get a quick glimpse of your current running applications. This information helps us to conduct a TCO analysis of your workloads in the cloud using a rehost or lift and shift strategy. We can also run a migration readiness assessment, which is comprised of 86 questions to determine your cloud readiness. This is typically done with leaders and executives that are in charge of the cloud migration. The MRA, or the Migration Readiness Assessment, it also helps pinpoint gaps and risks. And the AWS team can help develop a roadmap of how to overcome these obstacles. Next, we have Mobilize, which is geared towards preparing customers for migration. This phase consists of detailed discovery and migration planning. Things like discovering application dependencies. This is also where customers will set up their landing zone, which is their own private space of the AWS cloud. We also recommend setting up a Cloud Center of Excellence, which is a team of people that is brought together or assembled from across the organization and whose main mission is to drive the success of the cloud migration. This is also where customers define an operating model in the cloud and develop a secure architecture. Next comes Migrate and Modernize, in which customers conduct their migration waves. We have tools that help automate these migrations and also help migrate several applications at the same time. Later on in this presentation, Mohammed will actually cover some of these tools that will help you migrate multiple applications simultaneously. Once these applications are moved into AWS, customers can then seek to optimize them through right-sizing or modernizing them by taking advantage of cloud-native architectures such as containerization, serverless, or managed services. Another best practice for migrations that I highly recommend in my conversations with customers is to evaluate their current applications with the AWS well-architected design principles. When customers are looking to migrate business-critical or mission-critical applications or workloads into AWS, they often mention that they don't want to inherit technical debt, and they also want to minimize risk. So I typically recommend using the well-architected principles to guide their architecture design. At its core, AWS well-architected consists of 5 pillars. These are factors that you need to consider when building out your systems in the cloud. Operational excellence is about running and monitoring your systems to deliver business value and to continuously improve your processes and procedures, including having the right runbooks and automation in your processes. This includes things like incident management as well as change management. The security pillar focuses on protecting information and systems. The reliability pillar is the ability to prevent and quickly recover from failures. This pillar focuses on availability and durability of your applications. This includes scaling horizontally to handle spikes in traffic or automating failover to a different availability zone to prevent service disruption. Performance efficiency, which focuses on using your resources effectively. This includes things like right-sizing, as well as monitoring performance and making informed decisions to maintain efficiency as your business needs evolve. Cost optimization, as the name suggests, is intended to optimize your cost spent or your spend in the cloud and to avoid cost overrun. So you can do things like setting budgets, tagging your resources, and then attributing your costs according to different departments or different business units. To conduct well-architected reviews, we use the AWS well-architected tool that's available in the AWS console. This tool consists of a guided questionnaire that covers all 5 pillars of the AWS well-architected framework. After going through the questionnaire, the tool gives you a detailed report and can quickly identify any gaps, as well as any corrective measures that need to be taken. All of these details are stored securely within your AWS account. And these reviews can be shared within your own teams or with an AWS partner for collaboration. For more information, you can go to the link here or take a photo of the QR code. Here are just a few examples of the many thousands of customers that have migrated to AWS. I'd like to now hand off to Bindu Kaul from Fannie Mae, who will give you some insights into her migration journey.
Thank you, Yasser. My name is Bindu Kaul, and I'm a Senior Director in Cloud and Data Technology at Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae provides access to fair and affordable housing finance by backing lenders with affordable mortgages. Fannie Mae has enhanced house finance liquidity by reducing risk. Since its inception in 1930, it's a financial institution which underwrites many different kinds of loans. And here today, I will share what our cloud transformation and cloud adoption journey has been since 1999, what were the challenges that were experienced, the solutions that were used with the help of AWS, and also where our journey is today. What were our business drivers for taking us to the cloud? Fannie Mae's business drivers has been to downsize the on-premise workloads so that when the contracts come up for renewal, Fannie Mae has an option in its posture towards the market, which has demand peaks in the housing industry. To meet that demand, targeting our workloads, migrating them to AWS, and modernizing the workloads as a strategy that Fannie Mae adopted. Fannie Mae handles NPI data. It is personal financiable identification information about a consumer, their social security number, driver's license, accounts, date of birth, data that needs to be secured, protected, and the access to the right people has to be provided. Reducing operational risk is imperative for Fannie Mae. And by using data loss prevention measures, we improve our security posture, create defense in depth, and using the resilience strategy, we are able to mitigate against a risk of disasters, man-made, such as ransomware, or natural. And by having an option to deploy in a different region, and by having a strategy of automation, we can do failover and failback, which enhances our stability posture in the market. With the modernization of digital transformation, there is the promise that the cloud will deliver. And the way Fannie Mae is leveraging cloud technology is going to be able to improve its business operations. Fannie Mae is in the business of loans, a lot of documentation, manual processes, and reconciliation. And to be able to lead to a better service of digitization of documents and algorithms to process the documents so as to respond to our lenders and partners in real time, Fannie Mae seeks to get that digital transformation in the cloud by adopting new technologies, by innovating and trying better business processes to be able to operate at scale. So what were our adoption challenges? In any industry which adopts cloud, the organization of the industry has some friction against the adoption of the cloud. It's a natural process. The organization of a company needs to be looked at to be able to really derive cloud benefits. For Fannie Mae, we have at least 5 unique portfolios with unique specialized business services and sub-portfolios. And to be able to have all the migration assets across all the portfolios be sequenced for migration was a challenge. In any organization, there is the culture and the technology stacks that are being used. The cloud is bringing in a new technology stack and new architectures that need to be adopted by the enterprise. In the cloud, it's a distributed architecture. There's domain-based designs, which require microservices, different kinds of computes, serverless like Lambda, or isolated workloads like containers, and then orchestrating them at scale to get the benefits. All this new cloud fluency needed to be established in the company as well. And I'll share how we did in that. Securing the migration as the migration workloads move from premise to the cloud is required. Fannie Mae has stringent requirements and has a very low risk posture. And what we need to maintain is microsegmentation. Microsegmentation is the operation of a workload to create the minimum surface for attack vectors, to contain any breach, and to also meet regulatory compliance. And this microsegmentation, which could be achieved in the cloud, need to be brought back also to our premise systems for coherent operations in migration. Scaling of the migration occurs not only at the enterprise level by the migration of assets across the portfolios, but also at the lower level or at the local level, every asset owner has to be mobilized and skilled to be able to deploy with automation and have the operations in the business scale as well. How did we come to meet this challenge, which looks multidimensional? It seems to require a lot of planning and orchestration across the company. AWS has crystallized its learning from its numerous partners to be able to provide frameworks that may seem abstract but do work. The value chain of getting the product and features up to the cloud starts with the technology transformation. That's clear. But the technology transformation creates transformation in process and then in organizations. And underlying all this transformation, one has to be able to have the organization of the foundational capabilities like business, people, process, security, enabled and organized to get the benefit of the cloud. The execution model is envision, align, operate, launch, and scale. How does that work for Fannie Mae? It starts with being able to determine what is the target state architecture for an asset, to be able to align all the stakeholders, create a value chain, do a pilot, show the benefit before it's deployed into production. And it's an iterative process. Fannie Mae has solidified our processes, how we've started with and codified them within our company. It starts with a service assessment. It goes into technology selection process, then a minimum viable architecture, and a minimum viable product, which then is taken into production called path to production. And we have created a codified environment, a well-established, stable cloud adoption strategy. I will touch upon some key business perspectives that were enabled. How did we do our portfolio management spread around the enterprise? CAF recommends, prescribes a centralized CMDB in which you register every asset across the company. Each of the assets is given at our disposition, 7 Rs, 5 of them are Gartners, and what they are is rehost, replatform, refactor, repurchase, retire, retain, so on. Really the strategy is for every asset you are determining the target state, will it just be lift and shift, or is there going to be modernization of the workload? And each disposition has a target architecture that gets associated and registered with the asset and is centralized. So in this highly federated model of the company, there is a centralized way of looking at the migration journey. What then it enables us to do is sequence our migration. And innovation, the digital transformation that we requires retrying and working with different kinds of services. And we used the target architecture, reference architecture for innovation sandboxes from AWS. We can spin up sandboxes and tear them down, have a spend limit on them, and for the delivery teams and architects to try out new services. And we can do that really rapidly. Product management is where we've created customer-focused teams and align the architecture with Fannie Mae product teams. The people perspective. People is the engine of cloud transformation. It is the asset that needs to be developed throughout the company for cloud adoption to be successful. It includes transformation leadership, cloud fluency, and workforce transformation. How does our journey look? If you look to the right, lower right, you will see it starts with business intent from our business owners. That's brought into our architecture team, cloud and data technology, working with the business portfolio, and that business intent is converted to requirements and a target architecture. Looking at the architecture with all the dependencies that it creates and use of new capabilities that need to be enabled in the company becomes clear. And the architecture team lays down the priority and the sequence together with the data that the delivery teams provide for when that enablement can happen. These priorities are set on the delivery teams, a center of excellence in our shared services teams through our cloud program. While the migration is occurring, there is a horizontal of security and compliance, and each architecture is governed. There is a governance oversight by risk management, privacy, data governance, security, and resiliency before the architecture gets approved. So all the regulatory requirements are baked into the architecture, and after getting reviewed, only the path to production can occur. And in our delivery, from the delivery team of the Center of Excellence is where the cloud infrastructure control plane is enabled, new capabilities, account provisioning, and so on, to be able to work with the shared services such as containers, databases, and together they build the dependency chain, which is then consumed by the application asset owner to be able to enable their migration to the cloud. This workforce transformation occurred by having a cloud academy within the company where we had cohorts doing self-study and instruction-led courses, and we have been able to get at least about 500 people through these cohorts. 250 have been certified in architecture, associate, and professional DevOps security. A base of cloud fluency in the company is established. And the workforce transformation occurs because at the local level, the deployments are done by automations on CI/CD pipelines on-premise and the cloud. Security perspective is one of the most important requirements for our infrastructure protection. The security requirement in our regulatory space is at both levels, macro segmentation and micro segmentation. Macro segmentation is the separation of non-production workloads with production workloads, and this is enabled in the cloud by having environments that are dedicated to development, testing, acceptance before they go to prod, And this kind of environment is also supported by a micro-segmentation strategy of AWS, where you start with software-defined networks, which is subnets, where your compute and data is separated. It gets layered over by stateful security groups and stateless network access control lists, NACLs. And by having a layered security on these workloads, the access to this is vertically segmented in the cloud. And only shared services have connectivity around these environments. Having established a micro-segmented strategy in the cloud, it becomes imperative to look at the on-premise hybrid environment as well. The reason is, in a migration, it's not big bang. It happens over a few years, and they're transitional architectures. So a migration workload in the cloud still may have data on premise, which is its persistence or its statefulness, and those connections from the cloud to the on-premise need to have the same regulatory requirements to be enforced in a financial institution. What it requires is microsegmentation is taken down to premise as well, and the security parity between the cloud and on-premise is elevated to meet the requirements. And I'll talk about how we met that requirement for Fannie Mae. Our platform perspective, the promise of scaling the migration is really to provide business value. The business value for Fannie Mae is to go from manual systems to automated systems, to go from batch processing to real time. For a borrower, when talking to a lender, and the underwriting is done by Fannie Mae, for certain inquiries from the borrower to the lender, we want to be able to respond in real time from Fannie Mae for those inquiries, for those validation and verifications. How do we achieve such business outcomes? The strategy is to be able to scale at every layer of the enterprise. It starts with the platform perspective, to be able to re-platform or refactor our workloads from premise to the cloud. And the way we do it is in the re-platforming, more resilient services are provided in the cloud. They can be re-platformed or refactored to compute such as Lambda serverless or ECS, providing scale as will be needed. And then, furthermore, to provide the next layer, which is the data functional architecture. Data is a commodity in an enterprise that needs to be managed securely. So data movement occurs from premise to the cloud by using DMS, Data Migration Service, and Data Sync. And in the cloud, batch processing occurs by using ETL tools like Glue and driving the loads or storing the loads to fit-for-purpose databases. And AWS supports a variety for fit-for-purpose databases. And Fannie Mae uses Oracle RDS, Postgres, Redshift as needed. To get to the promise of real-time response from the business operations, streaming of data and validating and verification of data in real time is needed. We have automated and modernized our underwriting system where we are using event-based architectures. A private API between Fannie Mae and the lender is established on an API gateway, and then a microservices architecture responds to that validation and verification request for the applicant's income statement or employment statement in real time. And the registration is done through Kinesis for the reporting results into a data lake in Fannie Mae. The enablement of all these services requires account provisioning at scale. And we do it by using code pipelines and a service catalog. FedRAMP compliance is built into our accounts by using AWS config rules, pre-builds and custom, and we are assured that we are meeting NIST 853 controls by such an enablement. As you can see, the migration is modern application development, and prioritizing automation is required. Enabling CI/CD pipelines on-premise and in the cloud is the impetus that is given to this modernization that I described. So where are we today? We have, as of now, migrated 68% of our assets to the cloud. And our targets increase every year. The acceleration continues. We have added an additional component to our strategy of really accelerating the workloads from the premise to the cloud for assets which have a disposition of retain or retire. Instead of leaving them on the premise, we are accelerating them to the cloud. We are planning at least 200 assets in that category to be migrated by the end of next year. And the strategy, the rehosting strategy, and the lift and shift, and the tools required to accelerate this will be discussed more by Mohammed Sharaf from AWS. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for being here today. Cloud migration tools. Tools are very important to our lives. They help us to do our tasks and achieve our goals at ease and efficiently as possible. With cloud migration, we need to use the same type of tools in order to help us with all these tasks that we are going to do across the stages, the different stages. So today, I'm going to talk about several tools, some select tools, and I'm going to talk about the challenges that these tools solve for. Then I'm going to talk about the features of these tools and how they work. But before going there, I just want to tell you a story of one of our customers. So this is a utility company, and they have multiple workloads running on their data centers, and they wanted to move these workloads to the cloud. And when they started, their first goal was to move 1,000 servers within 1 year. When they started this, they started the traditional way, so they didn't use like specific tools. They did the manual way of moving workloads, and they were able to move 25 servers only within 1 year. So you can imagine the impact of this on their timelines, budgets, and business decisions, right? Then they opted out to go into using the tools that we provide. And with the right migration tools, they were really able on the next round to move 1,200 servers within 5 months only. So they not only did they achieve the goals, but they achieved it in less time. So that's how tools can help with the migration journey. There is a rich set of tools, and you can see a lot of tools from AWS and from our partners on each of the phases that you have seen before, like the assess, mobilize, and then migrate. But today, I'm going to focus on 4 tools selected just to go through the journey end to end. I'm going to start by the migration evaluator for in the assess phase. Then I'm going to go over the AWS Control Tower to help you with the foundations, moving your workloads. And then I'm going to end with the migrate and modernize. I'm going to talk about the application migration service, or NGN for short, and the cloud migration factory. The first step when you start the migration journey is to discover the workloads. So the first thing you want to do is to understand your current workloads, have visibility on the future, make sure that you see the type of hardware that you're using, the utilization in there, and then find a way or a tool to help you optimize this when you move this to the cloud. You also want to make sure that you have a way or a tool to provide you with reporting that shows you the total cost of ownership, or TCO. So the business decision makers make sure that they are going the right direction when they are moving these workloads. AWS Migration Evaluator is this tool. So you install Migration Evaluator on your workloads or on your environment, and then it starts to discover your compute, storage, memory, but also it discovers the utilization of these workloads that you have running. Then the tool is going to take these and come up with an optimized target state. So selecting the right EC2 instances that are most cost-effective to run the same very workloads on AWS. It also provides several types of reporting, as you see here on the top of the screen, that helps you identify the TCO and see the cost savings. So the Quick Insights report, for instance, is a one page that shows you directly the type of savings that you can get. Migration Evaluator is fast. You can run it like by installing agents, or you can go with an agentless collector. And if you have already a discovery of your current environments through the configuration management database, you can also take this information and input this to Migration Evaluator. So as you see here, Migration Evaluator needs to be running or can be run at the very early beginning of your migration journey. And at this stage in the assess, you might not be ready to move the workloads in the migrate and modernize. However, when you run it on the very early beginning, what happens is you have visibility on the future state. So you have visibility across the whole environment, the whole steps. And also, Migration Evaluator will give you a financial layer on top of any discovery tools that you might use in the mobilize phase. The outputs of Migration Evaluator, which is the future state inventory, can also be used as an input to the migration tools that you can use later on. So the migration tools understands or realizes the type of workloads that you are going to be moving. So as you see here, when you run it in the beginning, you can use it across these different steps. Here, as you look here on the screen, there is an example of the executive summary. So to the left here is showing you the on-premise versus AWS cost when it runs after optimization for the compute and storage, and it shows 22% savings for this example, for instance. Also, the one to the right is the OS instance classification. So Migration Evaluator is going to classify your workloads, identify which types of instances are in use and which ones are not, and most importantly, the zombie servers. Zombie servers are the ones that are running on your environment today, and they are not doing anything. They are technically doing nothing. If you don't know these, or if you don't realize them, and then you move them across with the other workloads, now you are paying for something that you don't want. So probably when you see this, you see that, okay, 15% of my servers can be retired. So this type of report gives you an idea of what you can do for cost savings. Now that you have discovered the workloads, the next step is prepare the environment, prepare a landing zone for your workloads to move into AWS. So you want to find a way to build identity management and single sign-on. So you want the users to have a single place where they can log into the different accounts that you have. Actually, you want to be able to create multiple accounts for governance. So workloads by project or by applications can be grouped into their own accounts so you can apply security and whatnot. So you want a way to build these. You also want to make sure that you have a way to do the logging and the monitoring on your different environments, and you apply the security and governance. Building this manually can take weeks or even months. So you want a tool to help you build this. The AWS Control Tower is the tool that you can use for this. So it's a centralized place to build a well-architected multi-account foundation or landing zone that applies governance for operations, security, and compliance. Here's what it builds. So first, it can set up your AWS landing zone, as we just mentioned, but then it centralizes the identity and access management. It then establishes guardrails for governance, and these guardrails are applied to the users and the services in order to identify what they can or cannot do. And in the end, the account factory is what you can use to automate the building of multi-accounts or the accounts that you are going to use for your workloads. And it applies the same guardrails into these accounts. So whether you build this today or 6 months down the line, the same rules will apply. All right, so we discovered, then we have the foundation. The next step is to do the actual migration. The challenge that you get when you run production migration or when you do a production migration is the downtime. So it's a production critical environment. You want to minimize the downtime. You want the cutover to be as minimum as possible. After you do the downtime, you also have changes on the source environments that you want to have them moved during this downtime. And also, you want to be able to do a testing. So once you have the new environment, you want to make sure that you test it. You make sure that if you are going to run some scripts in there, to make sure that it's running before you take your users into the new environment. So you want to have a tool to do this for you. Application Migration Service, or MGN for short, is the tool that you can use for that. So it can move any workloads from any source to AWS. And it can migrate a wide range of operating systems and databases like Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server. And it uses block-level replication. And this enables the short cut-over window. And I'm going to show you in the next step how this works. This is also high secure, so all the data in transit and at rest is encrypted. And it enables you to build multiple test environments. So you can build a test environment using the tool, test it, do whatever type of test you want, and then in the end you can just switch to cutover, which builds the latest environment for you to use. If you look here, here's how it works. So to the left, I have the corporate data center, and to the right, we have the target region in AWS. Here is my workload. So I have, for this example, 2 machines with their storage. I will build subnets in the target region to hold the staging area, so hold the replicated servers, and then my migrated resources are going to be on the very right. Then I'll instantiate or initialize MGN, or Application Migration Service, on my region, and install an agent on each of the machines that I want to migrate. The agent is going to connect with MGN, and MGN will build the replication servers and the EBS volumes for replication. Replication is going to start, and this is a continuous level replication. So any changes that happen on the source are going to be replicated almost instantly to this staging environment. Then you click on the launch for test mode, and then the conversion instance is going to start, and it's going to convert these volumes into the new environments, your EC2 instances. Then you can run the test, multiple of these. Once you are done with the test, you make sure that everything has been migrated correctly. Now you need to build the latest environment that you are going to migrate to. So you click launch for the cutover mode, which will destroy the test environment and build the actual environment. So that's how you can go through this migration. It's very important to show here that this replication and also the communication between MGN and the agents are all encrypted using TLS. And the data at rest that is stored in the EBS volumes can also be encrypted. So it's all secure. You can run this migration across the internet or over VPN, or you can use Direct Connect and eliminate the internet at all. That's good if you are going to run this on 1, 5, or 50 servers. But imagine you are doing this on 1,000 servers. It's going to take too much time. So larger scale migrations have their own challenges. It's going to take time to perform these. It's also complex. So when you run these, you have environments that can be running Windows, can be running Linux or others, and then you want to push the agents in there. So you want a way to automate and run these fast. Also, with large-scale migrations, you will see multiple teams that you have. They want to see tracking on this, monitoring of this. They need a single pane of glass to look at this migration end-to-end. So you have operations teams, security teams, other teams. You want to provide this to them. To do this, you can use the Cloud Migration Factory solution, or CMF for short. So Cloud Migration Factory is a tool to automate and orchestrate this migration. It uses APIs and scripts to batch perform these migrations across your environments. Cloud Migration Factory will take the discovery tooling inputs. So if you remember from the migration evaluator, the outputs, the target state outputs can be inputted into here. So Migration Factory now understands where your environments are. Or if you have the same in the configuration management database, it can be used as an input as well. And then it allows you to define your environments in waves using CSV format. So you can do a batch definition of all your environments in waves. Each wave will include the set of resources that you want to migrate together, like for a project or for a set of applications that you want to move at the same time. So you define these, and then Cloud Migration Factory will also connect with a tool like Application Migration Service, and get the status or make an API call to start the migrations. And it's also going to connect with your AWS environment for applying configurations. And in the end, it also gives you a single pane of glass to see the progress. So here to the right, if you look at this high-level diagram, it's showing you the components of the CMF, or Cloud Migration Factory. So it's an application. It's actually a web application with a set of APIs. And all the metadata that we have been collecting are kept into DynamoDB. The migration execution server is the actual server that connects through the APIs to your, and scripts to your corporate data center in here. And it also connects to the application migration service, or MGN, to monitor and perform. For each wave, to the left here, you can see the set of scripts that runs that are automated through CMF and the execution server. So for instance, let's take one example. When in the beginning of each migration, it's going to check the prerequisites, make sure that the right ports are open. It's going to push the agents to be installed on all your servers in these waves. And it's going to run the post-launch scripts and so on. So as you see here, there is automation across the whole steps of your migration. If you remember from our story, this utility company that we discussed, when they moved the 1,200 servers, they used the Cloud Migration Factory for this. So that's how they were able to do this large-scale migration. So that was a summary. So we talked about security and compliance. We talked about the cloud migration journey and methodologies. And we ended up by several migration tools. So I encourage you to check our AWS website for the migration team and connect with them and see how they can help you with your migration journey. And also, if you wanted to learn more about the certifications and skill building, please visit these QR codes. You can take a picture of these if you want. And in the end, I would like to thank you for your time and for being here. And we are going to be here at the front of the room for any questions that you might have. Thank you for your time, and please fill the survey. Thank you.